Welcome in everyone, this is Sean with MTG808 Jr. and today we're going to be taking a look at the post-rotation version of Blue-Black Control here in Standard Pauper. Before we jump into that though, just want to make sure everyone knows about our plan for our scholarship tournaments for this school year. We will for sure be running our scholarship tournament in December, usual structure with $500 going to first place in scholarship and $250 in scholarship going to second place. And then if we reach our $400 stretch goal here on Patreon before May of at the end of the school year, we will be running a second scholarship tournament, same structure, $500 in scholarship to first, $250 in scholarship to second. So I'm pretty optimistic about us hitting our stretch goals, so plan for there to be 2 scholarship tournaments for this school year. And I'm super excited. If you want the best shot of winning that scholarship tournament, you are in the right place. This is your source for Standard Pauper content on the web. And if you live here on Oahu, well, I guess you have to live here on Oahu to play in our scholarship tournament, but we do have some upcoming youth Standard Pauper tournaments, September 8th and September 16th. 8th is at The Planet at their new location on Yonge Street. Google their address if you have not yet visited there. And then September 16th is over at Westside Comics at Kapolei. Both of these tournaments are prior to standard rotation happening, so all the old Standard Pauper decks are still legal. However, rotation happens on October 5th when Guilds of Ravnica comes out, and our first scheduled tournament right now after rotation is on October 21st. Over at Westside Comics. That will be Youth Standard Pauper post-rotation, and this video will hopefully give you some insight into that format. Excuse me. Alright, so we're going to be looking at Blue-Black Control today. This is the text version of the deck. You can take a look at that. We'll leave a link to it in the description. Before we dive too deep into the deck, though, just want to give some background info on Guilds of Ravnica. So for those of you unfamiliar with Ravnica, it is a plane that this is the 3rd time the Magic story is visiting the plane of Ravnica. Ravnica is a plane that is one big giant city, and it's ruled by 10 different guilds. So 5 of those guilds are going to be featured in Guilds of Ravnica, and the next 5 are going to be featured in the next set after it, which is called Ravnica Allegiance. Each guild features 2 color pairs. So the Celestia Guild is green-white, Boros is red-white, Golgari is black-green, Izzet is blue-red, Dimir is blue-black, and then the other 5 guilds are in Ravnica Allegiance. So Dimir is going to be featured in Guilds of Ravnica, which means that our good old Blue-Black Control deck might be getting some spicy tools. Usually gold cards, multicolored cards, are not printed at the common rarity, but in multicolored themed sets such as Ravnica, usually they do print gold colored cards at common rarity. So I'm really excited. A bunch of the 2-color decks are going to be getting a bunch of sweet tools, and this shell is, think of it as a starting point. Once Guilds of Ravnica spoilers start rolling out, you can kind of figure out which cards you want, and you can start fitting them into this shell. So here is the deck. Let me just scooch this over so we can get a good look at everything. Alright, so here is the deck. It's pretty similar to the version that we were playing last season. Some big differences, though, are that we can no longer play Striped River Winder, and we don't get Hieroglyphic Illumination anymore. And then, of course, Wander and Death had to be downgraded to Soul Salvage, right? Same exact card, except Soul Salvage no longer has cycling, right? Hieroglyphic Illumination had cycling, Striped River Winder had cycling. So, as I said in my video featuring all the cards that are rotating out, the blue-black deck is going to become a lot less consistent, right? Having the ability to cycle all of our late-game cards gave the deck a whole lot of flexibility in the early game, right? If we needed to dig for lands, if we needed to dig for early interaction, we could definitely do that by just chucking away our late-game spells. So we did have to cut a good number of our late-game spells in order to kind of make up for some of that consistency. But I'll talk about those specific changes in a minute, but basically, big picture of this deck, if you're unfamiliar with it, the strategy of this deck is to just win the long game. The way we do that is by basically hitting all of our land drops and then using Salvager of Secrets, when it comes into play, get back an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. In combination with Soul Salvage, right, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So Soul Salvage can get back Salvager of Secrets plus another creature. And then you play Salvager of Secrets to get back Soul Salvage. Once Salvager of Secrets dies, you can rinse and repeat, and then you basically never run out of creatures. So in the late game, it does cost a lot of mana to do that loop, so the deck wants to keep playing its lands. But basically in the late game, this deck, it just locks up the late game. You're just going to bury your opponent in card advantage most of the time. So that's how the deck wins. We are only playing 3 Soul Salvage since we can no longer cycle it away. But some of the big differences here, we lost Hieroglyphic Illumination, which was kind of like our go-to draw spell. And I'm trying out Gravedigger in this spot. We might just want to play Secrets of the Golden City. Or Divination, right? Secrets of the Golden City, just a sorcery speed, pay 3, draw 2. If you have the City's Blessing, which means you have 10 or more permanents in play, then you draw 3 cards instead. So, potentially 3 mana, draw 3, but at sorcery speed, I think I wanted to try to get something a little more powerful in there if we're going to have to play sorcery speed card draw, and I think Gravedigger fits the bill real nicely. Of course, you can get Gravedigger back with Soul Salvage for extra card advantage. Gravedigger can get back Salvager of Secrets for extra card advantage, and then we are playing a whole bunch, or not a whole bunch, but a good number of cheap creatures that will likely die in the early game, so Gravedigger can get them back. And then, of course, there's always the double Gravedigger combo where Gravedigger gets back Gravedigger, then that Gravedigger dies, and then you replay the one in your hand to get back the Gravedigger that just died, and then you have a loop of chump blockers. So this deck has tons of stuff to do with its mana in the late game. Basically, the early game is just trying to make sure that you don't die. So, we got some cheap removal here. Fungal Infection, just 2 copies because it's kind of narrow. Essence Scatter is very good catch-all, right? So we're playing 4 copies. Moment of Craving, kills a creature, gains its life, helps us draw the game out longer. And then, of course, Murder is kind of the big catch-all. Blink of an Eye, it can be used to kind of slow the opponent down. It can also be used as a loop with Salvager of Secrets, right? Salvager of Secrets gets back Blink of an Eye. You kick Blink of an Eye to bounce Salvager of Secrets to draw a card, and then you replay Salvager of Secrets to play Blink of an Eye, right? It is a 9 mana loop to just keep drawing an extra card each turn, so it is kind of expensive. You can block and then bounce it with Blink of an Eye before damage happens, so you are kind of keeping some board position when you're in that position, but Blink of an Eye is just really flexible, so you can bounce their creatures, you can bounce your creatures. So that's kind of like our early interaction. Skittering Heartstopper is kind of like a removal spell, right? 1 mana, 1/2. You can pay a black to give it Death Touch. It'll trade with their early game. They are 1-drops or 2-drops if you need to play it early. Later in the game, it'll trade up. And then, of course, it is a creature that you can get back with Soul Salvage or Gravedigger. And then here's kind of like the lubricant of the deck that's going to help us make sure everything runs smoothly. We are only playing 23 lands. I think in my other version I was playing 24. But we are playing 4 Omen Speaker and 2 Dusk Legion Zealot. So these creatures, you want to play them on turn 2. Unless you're casting a removal spell or holding up Essence Scatter. But playing them on turn 2, Omen Speaker makes for a great blocker. The 1/3 body means that, there's a good chance that it's going to get to block multiple times each game. But the ability to scry 2 just helps us smooth out our draws, right? If you need a dig for action, you can get action. If you need a dig for lands or cheap spells, you can dig for those. And then Dusk Legion Zealot kind of does the same thing, not nearly as efficiently as Omen Speaker, but it does replace itself. Omen Speaker doesn't draw you a card, it's only card selection. Dusk Legion Zealot does draw you a card. Of course, you have to pay for it with a life. So these cards are just kind of like our ability to make sure that the early game goes smoothly. Trying to make up for some of that consistency that we lost by losing the cycle creatures. So, hopefully that does a good job of covering our bases. And then our big finisher here, we're playing Cold Water Snapper just because it has hexproof. You can play it. It has a big butt, so it can for sure block. If your opponent can't use their removal spells on it, they can still pump up a creature that you block to try to kill it. But you know, Cold Water Snapper having hexproof is a really big appeal. The other 6-drop that we um, could consider playing is Queen's Agent, 6 mana 3/3 with lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you explore, so you look at the top card. If it's a land, you put it into your hand, so you draw a card essentially. Or if it's not a land, then this becomes a 4/4 lifelink creature, and you get to choose to keep that land on top, or to keep that non-land on top, or to put it in your graveyard. So it's essentially like a scry. So Queen's Agent, having the lifelink is really important for kind of just putting or turning the corner and making sure that you're gonna live long enough to get your sweet late game engine online. But this thing does die to lightning strike. Even if there is a non-land on top of your deck, they can just lightning strike it with the explore trigger on the stack. This dies to murder, right? It's not nearly as durable as Cold Water Snapper. So I'm not sure which 6-drop the deck would prefer. I'm leaning towards the hexproof creature just because it's a little more reliable, but lifelink is really appealing. But I don't think we can play more than 2 6-drop creatures, right? We're already playing Salvager of Secrets, which is pretty expensive. Gravedigger and Soul Salvage might have to sit in your hand for the early parts of the game because you can't really play them until you have creatures in your graveyard. We are only playing 17 creatures. So I don't want too many expensive spells that are just going to sit in our hand. We want the deck to be able to, keep progressing its game plan, and you can't do that if you just have a bunch of 6-drops stuck in your hand. So only playing 2 6-drop creatures. Not sure which one is the correct one to play. You might want to just do a split. Yeah. But moving on to the sideboard, as we're seeing, control is becoming more popular in various forms. I'm personally partial to blue-black, but the other day we just posted our video on kind of green-black mid-range, and that's kind of like a control deck. It's like between a mid-range and a control deck just because there's all the value creatures in it. So, having the cancels in the sideboard are really good against those kind of slower decks that are trying to win the grindy game. You can just outgrind them. If your infinite loop is not infinite loop of card advantage isn't going to win those matchups, then cancel will surely go a long way towards that. Also negate, right? If you're playing against another Soul Salvage deck, then negate is going to do real well for you. Fungal Infection helps shore up our super aggro matchup. So does Windgrace Acolyte. If your opponent is trying to Lava Axe you, then Windgrace Acolyte is kind of our best way to gain life real quick. Soul Salvage, again, good for the control mirrors. Same with Caligo Skin Witch, right? For 6 mana, if you kick this, you basically mind rot them when it comes into play, which is really nice because if they do hit a draw spell or a Soul Salvage and they restock their hand, this is a creature, so you can get it back with Gravedigger or Soul Salvage. So good old Caligo Skin Witch. And then just the last Skittering Heartstopper. If you do play against a deck that has multiple hexproof creatures, then Heartstopper is going to be kind of like your go-to answer to hexproof creatures. So that's the deck. Just a couple changes, right? The Gravedigger, the Dusk Legion Zealots, main decking some Heartstoppers. Generally just trying to lower the curve. To help make up for that consistency that we're losing. But anybody who knows me personally knows that blue-black is my favorite color combination. I love playing me a good grindy control deck. So I really hope that this shell is good moving forward. We'll see if the Dimir cards, the blue-black cards in Guilds of Ravnica, will fit into this shell at all, or maybe they want us to they will be powerful enough that they will incentivize us revamping the shell entirely. I think Soul Salvage and Salvager of Secrets it's the best possible end game that's available in the in the standard Pauper format. So I think there's lots of incentive to be blue-black, but what the support package for that engine is going to look like, it could very well change depending on what we see in Guilds of Ravnica. So I'm very excited for that. I hope you're excited. Let me know what you think of the deck. Let me know if you're playing the deck and have any thoughts. And then last but not least, if you enjoy the content that we make here, or you just want to support youth magic here on Oahu, please check out our Patreon page. As I said, once we hit our $400 a month stretch goal, then we'll for sure be able to run our May scholarship tournament. And then we are going to be rolling out our playmat bonus for our bronze contributors or better. We commissioned some Hawaiian themed art that will be turning into a playmat. I'm a little behind schedule, ideally, of when I was hoping to get them out. School did start. This is my first year of full-time teaching. I'm over at Nanakuli High School, starting the Magic Club over there. And, I've got a lot on my plate right now, but I am hoping to have those Patreon playmat perks up for you guys pretty soon. So keep your eyes peeled. If you cannot become a Patreon subscriber, I just appreciate you watching the videos. Hitting that like button is a great way to support us, and of course hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell to make sure you get all the updates on the standard Pauper metagame. I've got a number of different deck lists up my sleeve still of what I think the format is going to look like post-rotation, so make sure you hit that bell if you want to get all those updates. All right, that is it for me today. Thank you for stopping by. Hope you enjoy Blue Black as much as I do, and I will catch you next time. Peace.